to hand over the microphone to your presenter, Jeff Johnson. Jeff, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you, and thanks to everyone for joining today. I should say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be around the world joining us for today's presentation. It's my pleasure to provide this time together. We're going to focus on industry skills and certification in academia. IT, it is a growing world of opportunity, and I'm having a co-presenter today, a special guest. That will be Professor Terry Hand, a professor from a college system in Georgia, and Professor Hand will join shortly to provide some insights around IT, the certifications in academia. One quick highlight, or not highlight, but logistical item at the beginning regarding our other presenter who's listed on your agenda, Ed Tittle. Due to an unforeseen, unfortunate family emergency, Ed is not able to join today. He sends his regards. I know there are folks who've heard Ed and been to his blog and so forth. Ed is a phenomenal speaker, lecturer, and communicator, and it would have been his pleasure to join today, but he's unfortunately not able to do so. He sends his regards, and importantly, he sent some information and some slides that we'll share a bit later in the deck. But let me proceed now through our presentation and really hit on the highlights of this growing area around IT and certifications, all in the academic space. Many of you who've been in colleges, universities, even secondary schools, high schools, may have a view of schools that's perhaps like mine had been, is a bit dated, or thinking of traditional stand and lecture classrooms. The world of education, especially academia, is changing dramatically all the time, and especially with an increased focus on technology and actual use of technology skills that have meaning for the workplace. And it's increasingly, we're seeing it in educational institutions surrounding around the world. In my role in Microsoft Learning, I've been with the company about 4.5 years. Prior to joining the company, I directed and taught in technology programs in a college and university environment. And we'll talk a little bit more later in the presentation about some of the valuable programs in the colleges and universities today. But fundamentally, let me talk to a bit of the background that's driving some of the macro information, the macroeconomics that frankly are driving the situation we see today, where educational institutions are increasingly seeing the need to add technology programs, to incorporate technology programs literally into the degree programs that are offered and the certificate programs at those colleges and universities. I think that first statistic is just fundamentally important to our understanding of the world today. If we look at it today, 1 out of every 2 jobs require some level of technology skills. Now, we may be talking about digital literacy, everything from digital literacy all the way to advanced IT pro or developer skills. But fundamentally, that's on the rise. It's going to be 3 out of every 4 jobs in just as simply as next 10 years. And I would argue it's going to be 9 out of every 10 jobs. So regardless of whether you're in the healthcare field or accounting or transportation and tourism services, everyone is going to possess and need to have, by employer standards, some technology skills. And that's driving the kinds of infusion of technology education in our schools today. I'm not going to go over all of these because you can read the points, but the other one to comment about is this whole notion of IT employment. There was for a time this conversation that all the IT jobs, they're drying up, everything's going to be automated, no more jobs. It's just not the case. Even in spite of today's tremendous economic upheaval, and that's been a global economic situation and challenges from country to country, we still see consistently strong growth projection for jobs. Nearly 6 million jobs over the next 6 years or 4 years in IT employment, and specifically half of those jobs are right in the Microsoft and other companies working with Microsoft technologies, right in that wheelhouse, with half of the jobs being related to software and software development in some capacity. So I think another way to look at this data, and I wanted to give you a picture of the Microsoft sort of piece of that, and this is just one snapshot in time. So what I took is this particular slide is a depiction of if you were to go out as yourself to look at skills and certifications that are in demand or in requirement today surrounding Microsoft skills and Microsoft certifications. This is a fairly simple exercise. I'll give you a couple of ideas. In the U.S., I'm based in the Seattle area, I would most typically use a site such as DICE or MonsterBoard or Career Builder. Many of you have probably had experience with these. On a global scale, a site like Indeed might be very common, and you might want to take a look at it. By the way, it's Indeed.com. So for this particular search, I went out and I did skills searches, and I searched by various Microsoft technology, but also some of the key Microsoft certifications. For example, the Microsoft Certified Professional, the Microsoft Certified Technology Specialist, MOS or Microsoft Office Specialist. And you can see just taking the advertised unfilled job openings is a pretty remarkable number and statistics. And remember, most people will tell us in today's economy that there are more unadvertised jobs than there are advertised jobs. So these are just the ones that employers are saying, we haven't filled today. We need folks with individual Microsoft skills. Now, in some cases, those might be SharePoint skills. They might be SQL Server or business intelligence skills. They might be Windows Server, network administration skills. It runs the gamut. And then in other cases, we're talking about things like advanced applications with Excel spreadsheets, so someone with a Microsoft Office specialist. But it's pretty remarkable to look at the volume and continued strength of the Microsoft name, the Microsoft skills, and specifically the Microsoft certifications in industry today when you do a simple job search. And these are just a few of the job search engines that I like, and when I've taught, I like to refer our students to, but you may have others that are more applicable in your region, wherever you are in the world, but you can try that same kind of exercise or activity as you go. So one of the other elements to think about as you're looking at career is, what do employers think about certification? It turns out that it continues to be a driver for employers in today's market. This is, interestingly enough, not all Microsoft saying this either. These are some Microsoft studies, but there are also some studies outside of Microsoft, and they're all studies with employers around the world as to what is the value for certification. So we have hiring managers who are saying that they will use the employee certification as one criteria in the hiring. And schools are realizing this and trying to incorporate now certification into their curriculum, into their degree programs. And you'll want to take a look at some of the programs that are available around certification when you're looking at where could I take a class, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with some of the information that Professor Hand will share in a few minutes. But the other element to keep in mind is certification is not just important to the employers, it's also important for the individual. We have studies that say the individual finds that it helps them be more marketable, to find that they help them in their career opportunities, and so forth. And so we have some questions in the Q&A pane, and I'll try to get to some of those as we go as well, as we go along here, and I'll get to those in just a minute. I want to talk now just a little bit about how things are really aligning for the whole academic or the education system themselves. And so you've got this, in a sense, the expression could be used, a perfect storm. Right at the center of that are schools, educational institutions. Some of those are secondary schools, others are higher education or colleges or universities. But we know that students are looking for opportunities. How can I be better career and workforce ready? How can I get some hands-on experience? How can I have an access to a program that's actually official learning curriculum, but also helps me earn a degree and a certification? And a lot of that work today, it turns out, is happening in schools. From a Microsoft perspective, a lot of that work is happening in a program that we call the Microsoft IT Academy program. some of you may be familiar with, some of you may be attending a Microsoft IT Academy, or if you're not familiar with the program, I'll give you the web page. The URL is www.microsoftitacademy, all one word, .com. The program was effectively put in place by Microsoft to help schools be able to deliver formal educational opportunities and industry-recognized certification, all while using the official Microsoft curriculum and the Microsoft content to help the students earn those industry-recognized certifications that employers value and employers are seeking. The program is only open to accredited educational institutions. So they could be secondary schools, it can also be colleges, universities. It turns out that the military around the world has a definite need for individuals to have certification, so they operate schools, and Microsoft IT Academy is a key component of the schools in those locations and on those bases. So I'm not going to go through all of the information on this particular slide, but really there's several different key factors that make up an IT Academy. So if your school is one, by the way, at that web page I mentioned, there's a lot of good information about Microsoft IT Academy. You also can use what's called the Academy Locator tool. If you'd like to find an academy in your area or find out, is the school I'm attending already an IT Academy? Because if it is, there are resources there and information that will help you as you pursue certification, as you consider going for that next level in your career. IT Academies include all of our official learning content in an e-learning format, as well as digital books content that's made available for students, for the teachers to use, and for the staff members. It also includes access to exams and exam vouchers and certifications, and there's also what's called DreamSpark, which would be incredibly valuable if you're going to think about having a career in like software development, and you're wondering, well, how could I get access to the software to accompany my learning? Well, it turns out Microsoft has this wonderful program called DreamSpark. We used to call it MSDN Academic Alliance. Some of you may know it by that name. We've changed the name to DreamSpark. Take a look at dreamspark.com and have a look at that opportunity, because there's software licenses for developer products. In other words, things like XNA Game Platform, Visual Studio, full enterprise editions of the software that you can use for your own learning and understanding, and you can access that through a Microsoft IT Academy school. So think of an IT Academy as a school that's joined in a collaboration with Microsoft to deliver the latest course information, the latest content, and to ultimately help their students to earn certifications. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the implementations of the IT Academy program in the state of North Carolina, and talk about how we've seen tremendous uptake among students when they're given the opportunity. So in the state of North Carolina, you're looking at a picture of the highest elected official for the state in charge of education. So it's the superintendent of instruction in the state of North Carolina. And she came to Microsoft and she said, you know, we have a challenge. We have employers that the state wants to make sure they can hire people with the right skills, and they're telling us that they need people with Microsoft skills and Microsoft certifications. What can Microsoft and North Carolina as a state do? So we put together a partnership of the Microsoft IT Academy program. And in fact, we created an entire program for all of the schools in the whole state. So 628 high schools, all delivering Microsoft curriculum and Microsoft certifications. And what's become fascinating is how much the students have embraced the opportunity. Not only the students, but the teachers as well. You can look at these numbers. So in the year before we did the IT Academy program, there were just 16 students and 3 teachers had earned a certification. But once the program was in place and the schools had access to the Microsoft learning, the Microsoft content, and they had access to the Microsoft exams, they took off with this because we took away the barriers. often one of the biggest barriers, what everybody on the call knows, are cost. What's the cost going to be for me as an individual, and what's the time going to be, and the location or the challenge to go. Where can I go to take an exam? Well, we removed those barriers. We said to the school, here is a program that you can deliver that will have meaning for students, not only today and tomorrow in classes, but for their lifetime, and especially going forward as they look at the opportunities they have to learn and then ultimately earn by getting better prepared for a job with a company in the state of North Carolina. So in that second year, we saw more than 8,000 certifications achieved by students, a phenomenal growth number. And this year, just through January in the school year, they've more than doubled that again, and they're crossing 20,000 certifications. Now with this program, they're primarily focusing on Microsoft Office. We'll talk in a bit about some of the more advanced certifications that are also available for students to pursue. And by the way, we've got some programs growing in other states now. Because of the success in North Carolina, schools are hearing about that around the world, literally. So we've now got entire governments and ministries of education in other countries that are looking at how can we do something like what they did in North Carolina. And here in the United States, already the state of Virginia, the state of Washington, Hawaii, have all launched expanded IT academies at all of the schools. And by the way, I just want to make a shout out for one of the other schools that has been very involved and literally started years ago as a Microsoft IT Academy. We have one of our attendees today is Chris from Dunbar High School, and that's in Florida. He's currently earned 6 certifications while in high school. That is phenomenal, and it's setting him up for his future. And so kudos to Chris and everyone on this call who's taken the opportunity to go for a certification. But if you get a chance to look up Dunbar High School, that is a great success story. It's in Fort Myers, Florida, and they have hundreds of students each year earning Microsoft certifications, everything from an Excel certification to a Windows networking certification, Windows Server certification. They've now got students who are literally earning 5 and 6 certifications before they graduate from high school, and they're setting themselves up for summer jobs and internships. So people ask me, well, what certifications could be done in high schools? Well, interestingly enough, we see our digital literacy certification, we see the Office Specialist, and our newest certification, and I want to talk about that just a little bit, the Microsoft Technology Associate, and I will talk about that next. This newest certification we have for what we call the MTA program. We also have some of our certifications, more than 20 of them, are approved for university credit. So you'll have access to this entire slide deck, but make sure, go out to that web page that's listed here and take a look. Some of you who've already earned a certification, like Chris, not to pick on Chris who wrote in, but he's got 6 certifications. He's going to be able to apply some of those certifications pre-approved for university credit. And the good news is the newest Office 2010 Microsoft Office Specialist exams, those are now approved. So you can now get even the OneNote certification and the SharePoint end user certification for Office are now approved for college or university credit. Now that's in the United States, but there are also opportunities in Europe and in other parts of the world where the certifications are now accepted for college credit. So that's something to take a look at. Go out to this webpage and have a look, and there's also an application there if you've already earned the certification for how you can go through the process in the United States to apply that certification towards college credit. And believe me, that is a great way that students are realizing to save time and ultimately potentially save money on their tuition that they would take at the universities and colleges. So where might you start? Well, there's lots of different places to start. We talked about digital literacy. I've talked about the Microsoft Office Specialist. But one of the areas I want to talk about today is this newest certification from Microsoft, and it was intentionally built for educational institutions, for higher education, and for technology-focused high schools, like the ones in North Carolina, like Dunbar High School in Florida that I called out. Microsoft Technology Associate is our newest entry-level IT certification. It was built with the entire demand suite of or portfolio of the IT, developer, and database career demands right in mind. So we've created 12 different flavors, if you will, or subject areas in which there are MTA or Microsoft Technology Associate exams. So you'll see things like database fundamentals, web development fundamentals, software development fundamentals. Each one of these is a Microsoft certification. And to back up just a little bit, part of the reason we did this is because it seemed to Microsoft and to employers and from our surveys with educators that there was a bit of a gap that existed. And that gap occurred between a student who had just really basic general technology skills or may have achieved a Microsoft Office Specialist certification and going up to get to a Microsoft Certified Technology Specialist. That was a big leap. And so Microsoft recognized that fact and created this set of fundamentals or concept-based exams that would really help get at the notion of, is the IT field for me as a student? Is this the right place that I want to continue my studies? And can I earn a Microsoft certification? So rather than being all about the bells and whistles of a particular technology or the how-to of a particular technology, this certification and the content that's been built is all about the concept and the background and the foundational skills that will help me get to that next level and help bridge that gap if I'm somebody that thinks I might like technology, but I'd like to explore it further. Microsoft Technology Associate is a very good way to do that and an achievable way to get involved with technology. And so today we offer the Microsoft Technology Associate in several different languages, world languages, and the other nice piece is that the exams can be offered right in your school or in your classroom rather than have to drive around town or go somewhere to go take the test. It can be taken right in the classroom. So just another way to look at the MTA program as part of the all-up portfolio or platform. I get the question a lot, is MTA a prerequisite for the MCTS? And you'll see some exam numbers here. And again, you'll have access to these slides, so don't worry about trying to take copious notes or write down every detail or item because you're going to have access to the slides. I'm also going to provide you with my email alias for after the presentation because I'm happy to engage with you on further questions as well. But fundamentally, MTA is not a prerequisite, but it is a recommendation, especially for those who may be new entrants to technology. Because remember, this is why we designed the certification in the first place. We went out to employers and we said, what are the highest career demand areas? And then we worked with college and university teachers and faculties, and we developed the curriculum, the exam sets, and then we came back and tested those, and we've now got in place this newest industry certification. And the growth has been phenomenal. We've got literally thousands of students now going for the MTA exam. Now, mind you, and keep in mind, remember I talked about the job announcements. You'll not, at this point, see job announcements for Microsoft Technology Associate per se as a certification in and of itself. That was not its original intent. The intent of that certification is to help build a bridge, but also to help make sure people feel comfortable with that particular technology area, whether it be Windows Server or database fundamentals or .NET fundamentals, but to build a comfort level for the individual and also to help that individual earn their first Microsoft certification. It's very achievable, and I encourage you to go out and take a look at the student study guides that are available. Go to the IT Academy page. Also, you'll see a URL here at our partner Certiport, so you can go to certiport.com/MTA. You can find the 3 student study guides. And I would share with you that it's very likely that many of you are very close to ready for that certification, especially if you've already taken a networking fundamentals course at your college or at your high school, or you've already taken a database fundamentals course, because it's really testing the fundamental concepts and the background of a particular area of study. And so we find that in a typical college, in the basic database course, for example, or in the basic security course offered at a college, they will already have covered roughly 80% of the content that you'll find on an MTA exam. So for many of you, this is a very achievable industry standard exam that you'll want to consider going out for as a great starting point for yourself. If you'd like to learn more about how some specific colleges and universities are using the MTA, I highly recommend take a look at these case studies. The study and story at Northwest Michigan College is absolutely fascinating. They were faced with the challenge that they'd had a number of students go through Windows networking curriculum and server curriculum, and they actually had students pursuing some CompTIA certifications and Cisco certifications, but they didn't really have a developer track, and they hadn't really helped students learn the programming skills. Meanwhile, in their area, they're in Traverse City, Michigan, in that area of the country, they have a series of employers who need and are seeking individuals with developer skills, whether that be database developer, as well as web development and programming skills. And so fundamentally, they went and said, we want to create a developer pathway for SQL Server, but we want to make sure it's fair to our students. So they created this MTA, and that led to the MCTS in SQL Server. And through that program, they've literally had hundreds of students. Just since we launched this program last year, they've now had hundreds of students achieve that MTA certification as a great starting point in their Microsoft technology. And now those students are going on and earning the SQL Server certification, and there are employers on the advisory board at the college who are using that student pool of certified individuals as their next set of entry-level hires and their summer job hires and their internships. So it's a great way for colleges to connect with their local employer community to help them understand that they are delivering the skill sets and the certifications that the employers are demanding. So we're going to give a chance for Professor Hand to speak in just a minute. I want to take just a moment and see if I can cover out some of any of the questions that are here on the page. One is a question that came in from Siddharth, and it's about what are the certifications for security and some interest in the security area. So I highlighted one of those already, which is the MTA for Security Fundamentals, and then you saw there's a pathway that would take you up through the networking and Windows Server 2008. I would highly suggest that security is an important career pathway, an important consideration. It is not by any means going away in the importance. In fact, it's growing. If you look at some of the industry white papers and some of the industry details and data that's coming out, we continue to have a great need for not only network security, but privacy issues, and data security, among all things, is protecting the data, the valuable data of companies and of governments and so forth. So absolutely taking a pathway in security, and that Security Fundamentals MTA exam might be a great place to start, and then combine that with an MCTS exam. And then, by the way, there are some other highly recognized vendor-neutral industry certifications in the security arena. Some of you may be familiar with the CISSP. That's one of the large or broader security foundational. Another one is the SANS security certification. If you want to send me an email, we can take it offline, a little more information about some of those security areas or security certification. And so I've got some more information now. I want to turn a little bit and talk a little more specifically in the academic area about some of the leading colleges. I alluded to this with Northwest Michigan College. That is a community college. Some of you know community colleges well. Some of you are attending community colleges. this is one of the important pieces. Sometimes I call it a best-kept secret in our country. People are often shocked when I say, did you know that almost half of all undergraduate students in the nation attend a community college? And part of the reason is it's a great value. And by the way, credit to Ed Tittle, who I mentioned earlier for those who had to join late. Ed would dearly have loved to have joined. He himself is fine, but he had a family emergency, is not able to attend the session today. But Ed was kind enough to share some slides and some information that I'm going to share with you now, and then we're going to have Professor Hand also talk about his experience specifically in the two-year community college space. But what may not be known to folks is that the community colleges of our country have a definite responsibility and a connection to their community, makes sense by their name, but they literally have that as a charter from the government, that they make sure that they service the entire community. And that means making sure they're responsive to the employers in their community. So you will see that community colleges are very commonly now offering the kinds of programs that we've been talking about, the kinds of job-ready skills and certifications that you'll see across a range of technologies, whether it be the Cisco, the CCNA, or CompTIA has had a number of sort of industry vendor-neutral certifications that have been available. And then through the IT Academy, the MCTS, the MCITP, and of course the MTA. All of those are very commonly now being offered at community colleges, and hundreds of those community colleges, somewhere in the order of 400 to 500 community colleges in this country, are IT academies or IT Academy memberships, so they have access to those kinds of resources I was talking about in terms of the official Microsoft Learning, having a test center on site that's convenient for you as a student to take your tests. So what are some of the other key sort of features of community colleges? And those include, excellent instructors and typically those instructors have a wealth of industry knowledge or industry experience. They also themselves often have and hold certifications or credentials from industry. They often are able then to bring those sort of real-world practical stories into the classroom that really help students not only understand the theoretical underpinnings of a technology, and that's critically important, but those community college instructors who've been through certification themselves, who may have worked in industry or done a job shadow, can bring that practical, real-world kind of in the war room, how did we do it in the company story to the classroom, and that's incredibly valuable for students. Community colleges are also keen to keep current with their technology because they have that responsibility to employers. They know that employers are keeping current, so it's very important to the community colleges to keep their labs up to date and to make sure they keep current with software. And they do that often through partnerships such as a Cisco Academy partnership, or as we've been talking about, a Microsoft IT Academy partnership. And then they're able to offer the broadest spectrum of many of the most popular certification programs and the credentials. So I thought it might be interesting to people. They've probably heard of, they know the community college in their area. What are some of the biggest community colleges? And these have thousands of students. In fact, they rival places like, that we all know, like in the United States, a school like University of Michigan or Cal Berkeley. We know those huge universities, but these community colleges are just as big, if not bigger, than some of the largest universities. And that's sometimes a little known fact to individuals. And so they have a very focused engagement, often with students who are returning to school, maybe adult learners, those who've been in transition, going between jobs, or maybe currently working and looking to get that next step up the ladder. Or the other piece is that community colleges often serve high school students who are in what we would call running start programs or tech prep programs, where they earn credit in high school for work they do in high school that earns them college credit. And community colleges are great partners and locations for those kinds of programs. So I see we have a number of other questions in the Q&A pane. I'm going to try to get to Professor Terry Hand next, so we can hear from Professor Hand about some of his experience and specifically some of his students and what they've done at his college in the state of Georgia, and then we will get to those questions, I do promise. So Professor Hand, are you there? Can you hear me? And more importantly, can we hear you? Are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
I hear you just great. All right. So,
I was on mute.
okay, terrific. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we're getting a number of questions, so we will have you talk a bit, and then we'll make sure we leave time to get to the questions. But I just want to make a quick introduction, and then Professor Hand will share a few slides here. But this is a real treat, folks, for us to be able to have Professor Terry Hand. He's a colleague that I've known in education for a number of years now. He sits on the Executive Education and Faculty Committee in the state of Georgia in the United States, and is Microsoft certified himself, a longtime professor, but also has that key ingredient I was talking about, that industry certification, that industry understanding. And he is directing a phenomenal program in Georgia that helps students and individuals to earn certifications and degrees at the same time. So they get their diploma and their certification. So Terry, with that introduction, I'll let you take it away and tell us a little about your program and your experiences.
Oh, fantastic. First of all, I really enjoyed listening to what you've had to say about community colleges, and I completely agree with it. 10 years ago, when I first was seeking a career, I had to make a choice between whether or not I wanted to work for a four-year college or a community college. And when I noticed, 10 years ago, I noticed community colleges were really doing a lot of hands-on training, current technologies, like you said. They're working directly with Microsoft and Cisco. And I noticed they started making direct connections with even workforce companies, out there, Microsoft, and I really liked that idea. So that was what originally started me with the community college idea. I like the hands-on training. But what I found out real quickly was a lot of the companies kept saying, are you certified? Do you have, it started with CompTIA certifications like A+, and then it led to, you and I both know, do you have an MCP certification? Are you an MCSA certification? And before long, most people, it was nice that you had a degree, but one of the first questions that came out of their mouth was, are you also certified? So quickly, us community colleges realized we want to make sure our people are hands-on trained, but it wouldn't hurt to also help them get certifications as well. And I'm so glad that we did that. About 5 or 6 years ago, you and I both know, Jeff and I made contact a few years back, and we decided to go ahead and make sure that the entire state of Georgia, not just my college, but all of Georgia, were going to be members of the Microsoft IT Academy. So Jeff will probably tell you a little bit. Every school in Georgia is now a member of the Microsoft IT Academy. We've enjoyed those benefits, everything from recognition to, nice free software, to discounts on certifications, which is what I really want to talk about, to materials to help faculty and students learn. Being a Microsoft IT Academy member has definitely benefited us in Georgia. In fact, we have consistently, unanimously agreed to stay members of the Microsoft IT Academy. It has helped us in Georgia really reach the goals that we want to reach. One of those goals is helping students achieve certifications. As you'll see on the slide here, they did a case study of us a few years ago. We've been the top school in the last 5 years in Georgia, helping students achieve certifications. I've even had the four-year college next door to me. Some of y'all may have heard of Georgia Southern University. They've formed a partnership with me about 5 years ago. They send their bachelor's and their master's degree students over to our school, which I still love. They send them over to our school to get certifications. They know certifications are a powerful weapon today. They carry a lot of weight behind them. They usually indicate somebody's skill level and talent. When you go for a job interview, if you have a certification, it probably puts you at the top of the stack. So we've definitely been training towards certifications. Microsoft's MCI, first we started toward the MCTSs and MCITP, but you'll notice, Jeff, I love how you talked about the MTA today. Put a lot of discussion into that, and how we in Georgia have been talking about that a lot too as well. Getting high schools to maybe start teaching that, maybe even us teaching that on a lower level to help them get prepared for the MCTSs and MCITPs. But let's just say that we've adopted the love for certifications. We teach our students hands-on valuable training that also helps them achieve certifications. And since then, Our students have enjoyed, we have about 100% job placement rate. I have most job places call me, which is really kind of exciting. They know who we are. We have Verizon, you name it, the company, CNN, Walmart. If you name the Coca-Cola, if you name the company, we have people working for them throughout Georgia. And I love it that they know who we are, that they know what our students can do. Certifications have helped our school and helped our students really go well beyond the boundaries of just degree alone. And we will continue to take that approach. And I can't tell you enough, Jeff, how excited I am that 5 years ago you and I met and talked. And I love it. You got some pictures of my kids up there. And there I am, if you want to know who I am, guys, the far left there, smiling there. But we've loved it, every minute of it. And I will continue to be a big certification believer. And if there's anything else you might need from me, I'm sure Jeff can connect you with me anytime.
Terry, I thought you might tell a little bit about how you emphasize hands-on experience in your classes, and talk a little bit about kind of how the degree program and the certifications work together. Do you recognize credit, for example, for the certification for the students? And the fact you have a testing center right there too, right?
Absolutely. In fact, funny you bring that up. Because certifications carry so much weight, generally, if a student comes in with a certification, we'll count that kind of like a pretest, a qualification for some of our classes. However, be aware, certifications, and you and I both know this, Jeff, they're tough. They're not something you can just walk in off the streets and pass. You really have to have a background and a knowledge in it, and that's kind of why we started off our classes. Community colleges are a great way to get, like you see up here, customized, hands-on, direct training that will also help you prepare for certifications. Most of the people who want certifications will call me. They'll come take our little classes, and then they'll go straight over to the testing center, which, like you said, I have a testing center on campus. They go straight over to the testing center, they get their certifications, and they couldn't be happier. They go on, they take that certification, go on and get a job, and I hear nothing but good things after that.
Exactly. Well, this is terrific, and I appreciate your hanging with us, Terry. And it looks like we're compiling quite a list of questions in the Q&A pane, and I'm going to try to get through a few slides that Ed Tittle has left here for us as well. But, Terry, are you able to stick around so we can answer some of these questions together in just a minute?
I'm right here, and I'll be ready to jump on if you need me.
Perfect. All right. So let me just jump to another community college scenario, which is the one that Ed Tittle wanted to share with everyone. And I'll make this pretty brief because, as I say, Ed isn't able to join us. But Ed has taught for a number of years as adjunct faculty at Austin Community College, another great example of a leading community college. In fact, it was one of the ones listed as one of the largest community colleges in the country when I showed that listing earlier. But Ed himself has been part of a program that delivers a variety of certifications. You'll see a number of industry vendors and industry products on this list, including Microsoft as well as some others. And in all of these cases, the unique aspect is that the schools, as Terry alluded to and mentioned, are able to have students take the certification exam at school, earn the certification, and earn earned college credit. Often that's maybe a 3 credits or a 5 credit curriculum. And so one of the great values, and Ed's given a little bit of information even about pricing, and you'll find that this varies, but you will find that it's an incredibly good value in terms of the price that you pay in terms of tuition. When you look at the kinds of costs that you may incur if you were at, say, a corporate university or some kind of other opportunity, as opposed to the community college, which does tend to have a great value because of some of its public funding arrangements, as well as some of its tuition structures that are offered. Typically, you'll have a quarter-long or semester-long courses. They can usually go from 6 to 9 weeks in length, that will take you through to get toward that MCTS curriculum that Terry was talking about, or even going to the MCITP. Now that will be a little more depth, and you'll be going through several classes and exams probably 3 to 5 classes and exams to get to ultimately get to the MCITP. But it's all definitely achievable, and especially as part of, say, a 2-year degree program, or some community colleges. Take a look at this. Look for fast track programs. Some of them call them fast track, or short-term certificate programs. Some community colleges will offer even 6-month or 9-month short burst certificate programs that allow you to get the certificate and from the college, as well as earn the certifications. And the nice thing is you're able to take advantage of certification discounts, not only as a student, but through the IT Academy. You can take advantage of discounts on the exams themselves, which is critically important, we all know. So one more kind of highlight slide from Ed is kind of how do I get started? You know, you guys have been talking about community colleges, but what would I actually do? And so none of this is necessarily rocket science, but it's just some good tips and some good feedback for you to think about. Every community college, every state has great, typically has web resources, up-to-date web resources. You can go to look, find the schedules, find the available classes. Look not only under the degree programs, the academic curriculum program, also look under a header called continuing education, or sometimes it's extension programs. Other times you'll literally see the program listed as IT certification programs. Go out and take a look at your local community college. As I mentioned before, take a look and see in the locator tool at MicrosoftITAcademy.com, are they an IT Academy? That should give you access to additional discounts on certifications, as well as access to the official Microsoft learning content that will help you in preparation. So use some of your local knowledge as well as local resources to find the community college in your area, and ask to speak with one of the career counselors. As I mentioned before, community colleges have this great outreach with their community. They also have a responsibility, both from the state government and the federal government, for placement of students, and keeping track of placement of students at minimum. Even if they're certainly not guaranteeing a placement. Nobody's doing that. But they are keeping track of who's going on, and it counts positively for them, obviously, if they're able to get somebody to an employment and get somebody hired after their education experience. So you will find that community colleges have available career counselors and career services offices to help answer questions. So make an appointment, go in and see somebody about what the options are from an IT perspective. And as Ed would say in his great champion cheerleader fashion, get going, sign up today, and take that next step. And you might find that some of the certifications you've already earned are good for what they would call running start or prior learning credits towards your college experience, and that will give you a head start down the road toward college or university. So that concludes the formal portion of the presentation. I want to now go through the questions and try to make sure we covered those out. And some of you have provided some comments. It sounds like some of you are actually going for the certification, the MTA in particular. And so, but now I have another question: is how do you prepare for the certification exam? That's a great question. There are multiple ways to prepare for the exam. Professor Hand could probably give a few tips as well, but among them, I mean, obviously there's taking a class, making sure you've done the full reading of the books. There are also practice tests and practice exams. You might take a look at, and there's a number of different vendors or products out there. One is measureiup.com. You might take a look at that one as a practice test. There are also some practice tests on their site, and then some are available on a license basis to prepare you for the exam. Make sure to take all the practices, and a lot of times in the online learning content that you're pursuing or in your book, there'll be extra practice questions. Use those as a backstop toward your exam prep. And then I always recommend for students, get in a group situation if you can in your classes. Form small groups with 2 or 3 other students. There's nothing better than getting together and quizzing each other against the questions that you know might be on the exam. Professor Hand, do you want to weigh in with any other tips and tricks around preparing for the certification exam?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I notice a lot of people in my state sometimes they do try to take the books and read themselves, and be aware, it is possible for you to be successful with self-study. However, I highly suggest you find a community college that concentrates on certifications. It gets you a chance to, like Jeff said, be around people like you who are also seeking certifications. Gives you a chance to really study material that was directly suited for the certifications. And I know at the end of every semester, my students get together during the breaks. Jeff knows this. And we do a little mini 2-hour study boot camps. We just come out here, and they'll come out here and we'll talk for 2 hours about, challenges and ideas and materials. And it's fun to watch them talk to each other. And when they're done, they usually feel really fresh and ready to go. They go take the certifications, and they've done really well because of that. So I've enjoyed having them meet after the break. I highly suggest you recommend them consider taking a course that's directly suited and trained for certifications. But I'm not saying self-study is not. If they have a background in it, they might do well with that. I just like the educational path a little bit better.
Okay, great. And so we have another kind of comment or question about somebody saw an episode on the Khan Academy around the presence of Microsoft in academia, and was this result in loss of teacher jobs, essentially turning teachers into graders. It's an interesting comment. I haven't personally watched that particular episode or heard that particular take, but I do know that one of the things that absolutely the Microsoft presence in academia does encourage is hands-on experience, and perhaps it changes the teacher role. I would agree with that we might have traditionally in education thought of teachers as a stand and deliver lecturer, or some have called it a sage on the stage, where it's somebody kind of expert just lecturing to people for an hour, and then they take notes copiously, and then they go away and on to their next class. I would argue, or would agree, that when some of the Microsoft programs and the IT Academy and even the Cisco Academy and any of these kinds of programs that you'll see in a community college, you will see definitely more hands-on learning, and I call it more the teacher as a coach or a facilitator, as opposed to being kind of this expert lecturer. So I don't by any means share the perspective that teaching jobs are going away. We absolutely need teachers in this country, in the United States, that the Khan Academy may have focused on, but we absolutely need teachers in every country around the globe to help facilitate the learning for students and bring it to life, and help with those real-world examples I was talking about, but also to help encourage the hands-on learning development. So that would be my perspective about the teachers, and frankly, I'm bullish, if you will, on the future of teachers and teaching around the globe. Somebody asked the question of, can we start with MVA and later to MTA? Maybe I might have mixed up some acronyms. You can start virtually at any of the Microsoft certifications. If you're new entrant to the field or to technology, I would recommend start with the MTA. It is not a prerequisite or a requirement that you do so, but that would be my recommendation. Start with the MTA. Or if you really want to even step back a bit from there and just get exposure to some of the basic technologies, we've got some great certifications in Office. You could get an Excel certification, a Word certification, PowerPoint. I mentioned those three because they're the three most commonly used applications, Office applications in the world today. You could earn a SharePoint certification. So you could start with Office, or start with an MTA, and then move your way up that ladder to MCTS and MCITP. And then somebody saw my note about big community colleges and is the bigger necessarily better. I actually, no, I would agree. Bigger is not necessarily better. And I didn't mean to imply it means bigger class sizes. It can mean exposure across the community, because while those community colleges that I showed might have thousands and thousands of students, they will also typically have many campuses. So think of each campus in and of itself like a little university or a little college. So often you'll see some of those big schools like Miami-Dade, that was at the top of that list with 50,000 students. They have 10 campuses across the Miami community. So plenty of plenty of opportunity to hopefully not get lost in a big system at a community college. So, but by showing the big schools, I didn't mean to be implying by any means that bigger in class or class sizes was by any means better at a community college.
I can testify to that, Jeff, as one of the smaller schools in Georgia. Just because we're one of the smaller ones. In fact, our school only has about 3,000 students, but because of that smaller school size, we have a chance to spend a little bit more direct supervision time with our. I only allow about 20 to 22 students in my classrooms at a time. If they go any beyond that, we cut off the rolls, and that gives me a chance to really spend time with them directly and help them, achieve that high quality that we become known for. So because of that, smaller schools are actually becoming more and more well known as producing, somewhat of a more quality product as the teacher to student ratio is a little lower. And so I think small schools sometimes rock, but I'm biased.
That's great. All right. Well, good. Well, there's another question here. How does the Microsoft Technology Associate work with online colleges? Well, the MTA curriculum itself might lend itself very well to an online learning experience because, as I mentioned, it is a little less on the hands-on how-to piece of the equation as much it is foundational, conceptual basics type of learning. So very likely you could have some of the online colleges, online universities, and programs offering the MTA program. And I would say that where you see, for example, a network fundamentals or a programming fundamentals course at an online college, that program, that course, as I mentioned before, will very likely prepare you for up to as much as 80% is my rule of thumb, about 80% of what you'll see on the MTA exam itself. So another question came in, does it make any difference to take a certification in the U.S. or outside the U.S.? Is a certification from outside the U.S. valid in the U.S. and credible? That's a great question about certification. So with respect to certification, it differs. So a teacher certificate, for example, or an accounting certificate, that would be very regionally based or country-specific or state-specific in the United States. But a Microsoft certification differs, and here's the important difference. A Microsoft certification is literally a global certification. It is the same certification, the same set of industry standards, the same exam objectives, whether you take that in France or in Brazil or in Korea or in the U.S. It does not matter. It is a global certificate, and that makes Microsoft different. It makes Microsoft certification unique, and frankly, it makes Microsoft certification valuable. It makes it portable, because now I, as an employer, know that if this individual is Microsoft certified on SharePoint Server, for example, or on SQL Server, I know that that individual knows a set amount of information and has a set knowledge base that's equivalent no matter what country or where they are, and that certification follows the individual regardless of where they are. So that's a great question and an important consideration to keep in mind when you choose your certification, to consider a Microsoft certification as a global opportunity. So which certifications are most important when trying to get an entry-level job? So actually, Professor Hand, do you want to talk about perhaps a little bit about what you've seen among students going for an entry-level job, and maybe even talk a little about certifications and experience when they go for that first job? If you're on.
Wait, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, I hear you.
For a long time when we first started, I know that we started with your basic certifications. If they had an A+ in like the MCP, I don't know if you remember the Microsoft Certified Professional, but those were the great certifications at first to help people get landed into entry-level jobs. But we are heading into a very different world. I won't lie to you. Some of the companies now they're getting awfully greedy. Now they want our students to have they prefer to have MCSAs or MCITPs where they have multiple levels of certifications. But they are also, I won't lie to you, they're also paying them better and giving them more tasks to do. So a lot of my students are coming out making more money than almost 20 grand more than they made 5 years ago, which is huge, significantly increase in salaries. But but also higher demand of job ability and certifications. So it's interesting you asked that.
I think it's a great question. So you might say that 5 years ago, maybe you could get one certification, and maybe now you'd say get the MTA, get the MCTS, and get all the way up to that MCITP. So maybe it's 2 or 3 certifications are going to help you that much better in the entry level right now.
If you have the MCITP, I will tell you, I've seen people get to the final 2 interviews of several big jobs or several opening jobs just because they had those multiple certifications. They were quickly got to the top 2, and most of them have moved on to get the job. So yeah, I would encourage the more the merrier. But entry level, you probably could get away with a couple of beginning certifications that at least shows them they have a entry level skill set that might get them in the door.
Yeah. Okay, so we have these wonderful questions, but I see that we're also running up against time. So I'm going to do my best to keep answering questions as I know we're up against the time, and I believe Francisca, our moderator, has a survey question as well. But it's been my pleasure this afternoon, and thank you particularly to Professor Hand for joining us, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to share with us today and hopefully learn a little bit more about certifications, about IT Academy, and the important world of academia and Microsoft's role. So,
thanks, Jeff. I've enjoyed it, everybody. If you need to get a hold of me, Terry Hand in Georgia, you can hunt me down anytime. I'll be glad to share any knowledge I have if I have any that will help you.
All right. Thanks, all.